The baseball bat came down hard on my back as I covered my daughter. "Make the girl watch," Uncle Marcus sneered. Aunt Helen cackled. "That's what happens to weak mothers." They thought they broke me that night. But that's when I started breaking them. The aluminum bat struck between my shoulder blades. The second blow caught my lower back. Agony blazed through my spine, but I didn't budge. I was protecting my daughter Emma. "Move aside, let the girl see what happens to disobedient mothers," Uncle Marcus growled, his breath reeking of whiskey. Aunt Helen's shrill laughter echoed off the kitchen walls. "This is what you deserve for raising such a spoiled brat." The bat clattered to the floor after the final strike. Emma sobbed quietly against my chest. I didn't shed a tear. I didn't make a sound. I simply looked at them both, burning every detail into my memory. Because this wasn't the moment they destroyed me. This was the moment I decided to destroy them. It hadn't always been warfare between us. Years ago, there had been genuine affection. Uncle Marcus was the brother who helped me move apartments. Aunt Helen baked birthday cakes for Emma. They seemed like loving family members, even if they were controlling. The toxicity surfaced after Emma turned 8 and started showing independence. They didn't see her as a child finding her voice. They saw her as a threat to their authority over our family. It began with subtle manipulation. "You're too lenient with her," they'd say. "She needs real discipline, not your soft approach." Then came the escalation. Raised voices, intimidation tactics, veiled threats about taking Emma away. I maintained distance until that terrible evening when I walked into their house to find Aunt Helen grabbing Emma's arm, the bat already in Uncle Marcus's grip. I stepped between them, and he swung without hesitation. The following morning, my back was a canvas of purple and black. My ribs ached with every breath. Emma's eyes tracked my every movement, wide with terror. She didn't ask what happened. Children understand the language of fear instinctively. That's when the burning rage inside me crystallized into something far more dangerous. Not emotion. Strategy. I photographed every bruise from multiple angles. I visited 3 different doctors, creating an extensive medical paper trail. I consulted with Rebecca Martinez, a lawyer specializing in domestic violence and family law. I began recording every phone conversation, every voice message, every slip of their arrogance into evidence. They believed they were untouchable, never violent in public spaces, but their cruelty had witnesses. Neighbors heard the screaming matches through thin walls. Emma's teacher noticed behavioral changes. My coworker saw handprint bruises on my wrists. I approached each person carefully, gathering their willingness to testify. They prided themselves on their community standing. Uncle Marcus, the respected construction foreman. Aunt Helen, the church treasurer everyone trusted. Their reputation was their armor, which made it my target. I discovered Marcus had been skimming from job sites for years. Helen had been embezzling small amounts from church funds. Individual incidents were minor, but collectively, they painted a picture of systematic dishonesty. The legal offensive launched first. I filed for emergency protective orders for both Emma and myself. The recordings, photographs, medical reports, and witness statements formed an ironclad case that Rebecca presented to Judge Patterson. The court granted immediate restraining orders. They couldn't approach within 1,000 feet of either of us. Marcus's face went ashen when the bailiff served the papers. Helen started hyperventilating in the courthouse hallway. They had no idea this was merely the opening move. Next came the financial assault. I had evidence they'd borrowed money from me repeatedly over the years, loans they conveniently forgot to repay. Bank records showed unauthorized withdrawals from accounts where they had temporary access during family emergencies. The amounts weren't enormous, but legally, it constituted theft and fraud. We filed civil suits methodically, each motion designed to drain their resources while building public records of their misconduct. Simultaneously, I orchestrated their social destruction. The neighbor who'd previously ignored obvious signs of abuse suddenly received copies of police reports. Marcus's construction company received anonymous tips about his theft patterns. Helen's church pastor learned about her embezzlement and restraining order. Their carefully constructed facade began crumbling piece by piece. They called constantly, begging me to stop the legal proceedings. I never answered. Their voicemails became increasingly desperate, then angry, then broken. Each message was recorded and added to our evidence file. The culmination arrived 8 months later in Attorney Martinez's conference room. Marcus and Helen sat across from us, visibly aged by the stress. Marcus's hands shook uncontrollably. Helen's makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. The mediator presented the settlement agreement: full financial restitution, formal admission of guilt, permanent restraining orders, and public records that would follow them forever. Marcus's voice barely functioned. "This will destroy everything we've built." I leaned forward, speaking with deadly calm. "Perfect." They signed every document. Before leaving, I played a recording on my phone. "Let the girls see what happens." Marcus's voice filled the room. "This is what you deserve for raising such a spoiled brat." Helen's cackle followed. I watched their faces crumple as they heard their own cruelty echoed back. "You wanted Emma to see me helpless," I said quietly. Instead, she watched me fight back and win. I collected my papers and walked out, leaving them in ruins. For 3 years they sent monthly payments like clockwork. Every check was a reminder that the night they thought they'd broken me was actually the night I began systematically dismantling their entire existence. Emma, now 12, rarely mentions that terrible period. But recently, as we drove past their old neighborhood where they could no longer afford to live, she said, "Mom, they can never hurt us again, can they?" "Never," I promised her. "Never again." Justice didn't arrive in a single dramatic moment. It came methodically, piece by piece, until nothing remained of their power except the echo of their own words condemning them. And I kept my word. In the end, they were the ones begging for mercy they'd never shown.